In our Law and Justice lead, Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial is on hold until next Tuesday, and that's when closing arguments are scheduled to take place before the jury gets the case. Lawyers for the prosecution and defense just met with Judge Juan Merchan to try to hash out what the jury instructions will be. CNN's Bryn Gingras is outside the courthouse. So, Bryn, what was discussed and what was agreed to, or settled at least, in this meeting?
Yeah, Jake, it's important to remember that the former president is charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records. And the felony here is that he did this, according to prosecutors, to commit or conceal another crime. Well, through these jury instructions, we have a clearer picture of what that other crime is and what will be presented to jurors to sort of navigate their deliberations process. Essentially, they're saying he violated state election laws that forbids a person to seek an election by unlawful means. And some of this negotiating back and forth on the defense's side, they asked for several things to be put in those jury instructions, which the judge simply just did not agree to. Let me give you a few examples. For example, he wanted jury instructions to include that the jurors need to be unanimous when it comes to what that unlawful means actually is. That's one example. Another is they wanted jurors to know that hush money isn't illegal. The judge says he's not going to be putting that in his instructions. Another one, they said they would like the jurors to be instructed about Cohen's plan that Cohen actually set his phones to a factory reset, to which the prosecution actually laughed at and said, we've never even heard of that instruction ever before. The judge also agreed and said that that will not be part of those jury instructions. So there was not many wins for Emil Bovee on the defense's side, but there were some. A lot of the thornier issues, I will say, the judge said he's going to reserve his judgment and decide the outcome. And he told both sides they're going to get the final drafts of these jury instructions by Thursday, so the teams have the full weekend to prepare for the closing arguments. And of course, that's when jurors will be back to get those on Tuesday. Jake?
All right, Bryn Gingras outside the courtroom in Manhattan. Thanks so much. With us now to discuss criminal defense trial attorney Stacey Schneider and former federal prosecutor Gene Rossi. Gene, the defense rested its case today, and now the jury's on a week break until closing arguments next Tuesday. What do you make of the judge's decision to not start deliberations right away due to the Memorial Day break?
I think it's a good decision. The only risk I'm worried about here is because of the long break, you may have jurors that go off the beaten path, if you will, and hear any comments about the trial. But listen, if they had done closings Thursday, it would have taken up the whole weekend of the jurors. I think let's start on Monday or Tuesday, I guess. And I got to say this. I think this benefits the prosecution because after all the hits that Cohen has taken, that prosecution, they really have to cross their T's and dot their I's in their closing argument and rebuttal because they have a tougher row to hoe than they did at the beginning with David Pecker.
Stacey, Bob Costello was the final witness for the defense. Yesterday, Costello was loudly sighing. He said, ridiculous. At one point, he said, geez, after Judge Merchan sustained objections from the prosecution. Judge Merchan he admonished Costello and said, okay, so when there's a witness on the stand, if you don't like my ruling, you don't say geez, okay? And then you don't say strike it because I'm the only one that can strike testimony in the courtroom. Do you understand that? Costello said, I understand. The judge said, okay. And then if you don't like my ruling, you don't give me side eye. You don't roll your eyes. Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Costello says, I understand that. I understand what you're saying. The judge said, okay, thank you. Let's get the jury back. Wait, are you staring me down right now? Costello, no, I'm just wondering how. Merchan, clear the courtroom, please. Clear the courtroom. So, and then whatever happened after that, we don't know. Was Costello a good witness for the defense to end on? I mean, do moments like that stick with the jury?
Oh, yes, they stick with the jury. Robert Costello was a broken trigger misfire of a defense witness. I think he was an unmitigated disaster, and all of the gains that the prosecution made on cross-examination of Michael Cohen by getting in that phone call to Trump's bodyguard and the 14-year-old who was harassing him and leaving the impression that Michael Cohen never talked about this before and there was no time to talk about Trump with Stormy Daniels, and getting in the fact that Michael Cohen admitted to stealing money from the Trump organization, all that was sort of now diminished significantly by Robert Costello's testimony, and I want to point out exactly the point where I think they blew a hole in their case, meaning the Trump team. On the prosecution on cross-examination went to Robert Costello and showed him this email from May 15th of 2018, which Robert Costello was writing to his law partner. And it said, while he was trying to obtain Michael Cohen as his client, so this was sort of the meetings and trying to get him to hire him, he said to his partner, we have an issue. We have to get Michael Cohen on the right page to give the appearance that we're not being instructed by Rudy Giuliani and the president. And to me, to hear that coming out of the mouth of an attorney who is trying to get a new client, that he is, the impression I have, is he's totally influenced and going after Cohen as a client because of Donald Trump. So what is Donald Trump worried about in sending Robert Costello in to obtain Michael Cohen and keep pressure on him? Michael Cohen was testifying throughout direct examination that I felt this pressure campaign from Bob Costello. I didn't trust him. I didn't want to say things to him because I thought it would go back to Rudy Giuliani and go to the president. Well, by Donald Trump's team calling Bob Costello as a witness and opening this door, they now introduced something that would not have been there had they just been quiet. And it was a disaster.
And Gene, let me ask you, you said a high point for the defense was during their cross with Michael Cohen about that October 24th, 2016 phone call. Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, says, when you testified about that 1 minute and 36 minute phone call, 1 minute and 36 second phone call on October 24th,